Bolton, Sir Bolton, Breaker of Dawn, going to be taking on Joe Cologne and Chane this round. Marius Suchanecki is going to be my guest. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Please come talk to me. Let me know. But repping Sir Bolton here in the feature match area at the Pro Tour 2-0.
I've got a friend back home in that Discord that doesn't exist that's going to be a big fan of this round. He is a big-time Bolton stan. Uber, that's for you. I know you're a big fan of Bolton. He's got a fully cold foiled out Bolton deck that he just absolutely loves. Yeah. And we're going to play against one of my favorite heroes, Chane. I absolutely love this. I absolutely adore this hero. I love Runeblade. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, right? Between these two, you're going to have a lot of back and forth, but the Bolton side has kind of a little bit of a combo finish sometimes when you see these sabers.
Yeah. I mean, that's usually the setup these days for Bolton. They're trying to play towards that huge Lumina Ascension turn. I want to note, too, Suchanecki here wearing a Team Poland jersey, assuming from Europe. They love Bolton in Europe. The representation for Bolton is so much higher in Europe than it is here in NA, in the other regions, in the APAC region. So I wouldn't sleep on this deck whatsoever. These players who are Bolton aficionados, they love this hero for a reason. They know what they can do. But I'll say the same about Joe Cologne. Actually, I recognize Joe. I only got to play one ProQuest during the ProQuest season leading up to this. Joe was definitely in the top 8 playing Chane at that ProQuest. So possibly the winner of it, I'm not sure, but someone who's very experienced with Chane.
Yeah, definitely heard his name mentioned around. This is our second Team Poland player.
Correct.
So far as well, at least 2. I was going to say, I might have missed one of the round that I didn't cover. I've been running around like a crazy person in between rounds doing stuff here. So good representations from that team here. Got to love seeing the European teams getting to do some of the work here and getting to represent their countries here as well. You know, like I said, going in, we've heard a little bit of an APOC, right? Not as much as we'd love, but a little bit. We know about New Zealand. We know about these North American players, Canada, the U.S., but I'm really, really excited to see the European contingent really get to represent their countries in this game, in this Pro Tour, and show that they can compete on the world scale just as much as anybody else.
No, I agree. The story of these other regions, so interesting. Going to go ahead and lead with a Bolt of Courage here is the Bolton player, and that's going to allow him, if it hits, draw a card, and when you play it, you charge your soul. That's why you see that card now present in Bolton Soul. Of course, Bolton Critical, they get the soul going. That's how you power up those big saber turns, get the damage output there. And Joe knows that. Look at these blocks. These are coming very early on the Chane side. Thinking about using Skullcap basically right off the get-go to go ahead and stop this from hitting, stop the card draw from happening. Ultimately, though, it looks like just Captain's Call going to make the block here. 1 damage is going to leak through. That means a card draw for Suchanecki. Is there follow-up here? Looks like just Arsenal and pass.
Yeah. Let's go back over to Chane, and Chane is going to look a little slow. That's a really good hit. We're 1 for 1 here. That is a Blood Debt card that is going to be removed to the Soul Shackle here. Chane is a deck that, this is an aggro deck, but it looks a little weird for the first few turns of the game where it's not just coming out and swinging like crazy, because it's going to build this Soul Shackle thing. And here we go. We got kind of the combo search chain going on a little bit here. Belittle is going to go ahead and reveal a Rift Bind here. And this is a card that, when played in these versions, you're going to see something you don't see too often, but you're going to see both of these decks possibly doing this matchup where they're going to go search through their deck for a card.
Yeah, not a huge feature of Flesh and Blood. It's not something that comes up all that often, but very, very powerful when it does happen. Belittle, sort of a point of contention among Chane players. I think, some people love it. Some people think it's unnecessary. I'm of the camp where I think it's critical. I mean, maybe that speaks to just my level of competence as a Chane player, but I'm lost when I don't have Belittle for Minnowism. And you're going to see the damage output go absolutely bonkers here for Joe as that Minnowism comes down and just pushes through a lot of damage, or potentially gets saved for a future turn.
It's got some cool flexibility here, too, when the Belittle finds a Minnowism. You can find a red one to push through more damage, or if you need more resources with your hand, you can find a blue one to be able to pitch for 3.
And that's critical for the Chane deck, because they are... I mean, they function on low resources. They can push out damage. They do have a lot of 0 cost, 1 cost attacks, but they want to go so wide that they do get value out of being able to find that blue and just fire off more attacks in a turn. Soul Shackle going to be made here, giving go again to this Bounding Demigod, which is pumped by the Minnowism.
So it is going to be attacking for 5 here. Now, I said that they may not be doing a whole lot the first couple turns. Joe's proven me a little wronger. This has been a very strong opening from a Chane player.
I agree. Good start from Joe here. You don't expect a lot of your first turns, and you're kind of fine just doing a little setup, getting your soul shackles rolling, a little bit of pitch stacking, getting some key cards towards the bottom of your deck to eventually get banished. But in Joe's case, we're coming out the gates, and that continues with Shadow Puppetry. It's going to give this next attack go again as well. Also a resource floating. You know what that means when there's some go again and a resource floating from the Chane player. You're going to get thorned at the end of all this, and that's really good damage output early from Joe.
Yeah, the good old 2-2, as we've been saying.
Absolutely.
So look at this. Riftbond's going to be attacking for 4. Equipment's going to come out plus a card to get a little bit of a block. And this is going to be finished off with that Rosetta Thorn for 2-2. It looks like both of that's going to get through. Going to push Marius down to 35. So really good setup and damage push through from Joe here. He's not going to have an arsenal, but this isn't one of those decks that necessarily needs an arsenal all the time because Soul Shackle does so much heavy lifting. For everybody at home, you'll see the Soul Shackle getting made. Yeah, it's going to give some of his cards go again, but the really important part is at the beginning of Joe's turn, he's going to banish the top cards of his deck equal to the amount of Soul Shackles that he has. Now, the good part about that is a lot of the cards in his deck, as you see here, it's going to miss on 2 of these. These cards might have Blood Debt, kind of like in the Levia deck that we're just watching. But the difference is the Chane deck can actually make use of the Blood Deck cards by playing them from exile. Yep. So you're pseudo-drawing extra cards in this turn by using the Soul Shackles. If they ever remove a Blood Deck card, that card is just kind of added to your arsenal.
No, absolutely. Chane plays in a very unorthodox fashion as compared to the rest of the format. And I want to note how these early turns have gone. Marius's last turn just drew up. That was it. Just drew cards. Didn't have any kind of offense. On this turn, you see very quickly throwing 2 cards in front of that Bounding Demigon. Marius is looking for something very specific as the Bolton player. You need to charge up that soul, then you need to charge up those sabers. And that's only going to happen with the right mix of cards. So playing defensive, very comfortable for Marius. And I want to point out, too, Joe, despite Bolton maybe not being a huge fixture of the North American metagame, Time Snap Potion at the ready. So is ready for the chance that maybe this is going to be a longer game. Maybe Marius is going to try and block him out for an extended period of time.
And yeah, you see that actually the way the game is playing out. Now, when you're on the side of Chane, you see this going on. And for everybody at home kind of trying to pace the game to see how it's going to go later, is this the Bolton player trying to set up for one of those big turns that we see from this deck? Like he might chip in a little damage here or there, but he's looking for the big combo finish.
Yeah, what's more important here, and you see another Bolt of Courage come down, loading up the soul with a Fate Foreseen. Marius doesn't really care how much of this leaks through. It's nice. Certainly you appreciate damage. Yes, but what this is all about is loading up that soul. It has to happen to enable the late game, that flurry that's going to come off of Lumina Ascension, off of Beacon of Victory, possibly finding those Lumina Ascensions and just charging those sabers to the moon.
Yeah, but I've seen these decks do upwards of like 34 damage in one turn with those combos. So look to see Marius maybe leak through a little bit more or get an extra card in somewhere to find those last couple points of damage from Joe. Also, Blood Debt kind of relevant in this matchup. If a few extra Blood Debts leak through, it might put him in that range of being OTK'd by the Saber Bolton deck.
No, I mean, you're exactly right. Those little leaks of damage, I won't say it's easy. It's very plausible for Marius to do 30 damage in a turn. 35, 36.
That's asking a little bit much sometimes.
It's harder. Yeah. It's a lot harder. That's kind of on the upper ranges of Bolton's output. So you're exactly right. Leaking through any damage can be a big deal.
All right, looks like a Howl from Beyond is going to get played here. Soul Shackle is going to get activated, giving the next thing go again here.
Yeah, and we are going to see a Vexing Malice pushing through a little bit more arcane damage in conjunction with a larger than average attack here. It looks like 6 going to be the damage queued up.
+2 arcane as well with Vexing Malice. So attacking on multiple fronts, kind of like that Rosetta Thorn is doing. This is one of the problems when you're playing against the Chane deck, is they're not just attacking you with physical damage. They're coming at you from all kinds of angles. And I was actually just let known that this is Marius is a content creator as well when it comes to this Bolton deck, and he was one of the originators of this. And you know what's funny? I say this because I kind of recognize the name. I'm pretty sure I watched one of his videos of how to do this deck and how to do the combo going into my prep for the calling in Las Vegas.
Now that you say that, Tannen, I've watched the same video. You're 100% right. Because
I remember the ProQuest had kind of made it into like changing up a little bit, and Chane wasn't doing as well going into Vegas, and it was mostly because we were getting the European ProQuest and the results, and I'm sure Marius had a big part of a lot of the Bolton Sabres decks doing so much better in those. And here he is, put his money where his mouth is at the first Pro Tour.
Yeah, and this was the hype story actually heading in to that Vegas calling. People were starting to talk about Bolton. I remember the folks from Arsenal Pass doing like an emergency podcast on it after Marius brought it to fruition. And maybe it was the mask that threw me off a little bit, but we should have acknowledged we're in the presence of Bolton royalty right now, someone who has really been instrumental in putting this Bolton deck on the map.
Something you're going to see Chane players do pretty often when they're playing. They're going to count their deck here. How often am I going to get to? Because you've mentioned this earlier, that second cycle, this is the deck where it comes into play.
Yeah, look,
so
Joe's doing math. He's counting how many cards are going to go through, where he's hitting, and it's so critical. Again, a medium Chane player versus a extremely good Chane player, night and day. And the output that they're going to get from their decks, it's just not the same. It's completely different. So little things like that Joe is doing will add up over time. And a really nice set of banishes here. Double unhollowed rights. That's going to go ahead and form the backbone of a nice little turn for Joe Colon.
Yeah, if you can guarantee the 50-50 on these hits, I think you'd be ecstatic with that.
Especially at this point in the game.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. And you see Joe doing that, kind of counting his deck. Marius is a little interested in that as well because this game's going to go a little long. We've seen that the Bolton player, they're just loading up their soul. We've seen those D-reacts, so they know that this game's going to go long as well. So good on both players realizing that, kind of try to figure out how to optimize their turns through here. But here's the thing. We're going to the Shackle 4 turn. We've already seen we got 3 blood deck cards sitting aside. You see Joe taking his time here. He's got 4 cards and an arsenal. These turns are about to get really complicated for the Chane player of the next time. They're about to do a lot of things. And is this where Chane can kind of start taking over the game?
Anytime you're reaching the 4th Soul Shackle, 5th Soul Shackle, I mean, the problems only get worse as time goes on. As that number climbs, their output gets more and more devastating. Things like Shadow Puppetry also going to contribute to that. It's really going to be about how much go again can you find, how wide can you get. And if the pieces line up correctly, the answer is it feels like limitless go again. You just have Soul Shackles into Shadow Puppetry, into Mauve Skies, and all those things just snowball to make these ultra wide turns. Going to be unhollowed rights here, buffed by that Shadow Puppetry. 5 potential damage headed the way of Sir Bolton.
And this is going to get overdone a little bit, overblocked here, right, for 6 because this is a D-react. But also this takes away the on-hit effect. If it hits, Joe gets a little bit of a card selection. He's going to look at the top card of his deck and banish it. That's good on multiple fronts. If it's a card that he doesn't want for the matchup or may not want his next hand, he gets to banish it. But if it's a card of Blood Debt, he gets to banish it and kind of stockpile that for later or even this turn. So it's almost like drawing a card.
Yeah, Soul Shackle. Going to go ahead, give that Rosetta Thorn go again. Pitches a Bounding Demigod to charge that up.
And this should be for 2 and 2 as well.
Correct. Shadow Puppetry, non-attack action. Unhollowed rights, attack action.
Yeah. Still 2 cards left for Han and Joe here. 2 cards in Banish that have Blood Debt. So lots of options still left over as well. Love the way that Joe's sequencing these turns, kind of parrying his thrusts as they go. So you never know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it looks like Marius has a Take Flight and a Command and Conquer. So possibly wanting to leverage that Take Flight to, again, get that soul going. And actually, I want to take a look at Beacon of Victory right now, if we could pull that up, because this is what we're leading towards here. This is what Marius is trying to get to. As he charges that soul more and more, it makes these potential Bolton attacks scarier and scarier. There you see Beacon of Victory on the screen. Banishing X cards from the soul, target attack gets X. You get to do a little searching for Lumina Ascension at that point, so pushing the damage through. It's nice, but really the key thing is you get Lumina Ascension and just pop off.
Speaking of pushing the damage through, we see a Bounding Demigod making its way across here. I believe that's a blue one, so it's only going to be attacking in for 1. You see Marius kind of like shrug a little bit. Now, there is an Arsenal set up here. We did see that Command and Conquer in the hand. Maybe something that, whoa, little fumble here. Maybe something that could come up. God, those sleeves are absolutely beautiful. I love the Dragon Shield, Flesh and Blood sleeves. See those pretty prism ones?
Yeah. No, really nice. I wonder, are the Bolton sleeves available yet? Was Marius forced to take the only light hero available at this point?
That's a good question. I'm a Chane sleeve until I die, so we'll see. I just ignored the other ones. I'm joking. I actually really like the Lexi sleeves as well.
I love the Oldham sleeves. That's my pick.
They're all so great. Let's be real. I'm going to get one of each.
I know. May as well just max out. Command and Conquer going to be the play here from Marius. Command and Conquer sort of seeing a resurgence in this metagame. I think, at the explosion of Starvo, it started to trend down a little bit. It used to be every deck had 3 Command and Conquers. That's just where your deck started. that has faltered a little bit, but with the rise of Chane, with this new metagame, I'm starting to see Command & Conquers creep back into lists and starting to become a fixture again.
Yeah, Arsenal's becoming a little more important. You can see the importance of this card of the Arsenal for Joe
Yeah,
here.
going to go ahead and cash in that carrying husk right now. You know, that's going to be in the Banish Zone for the rest of the game, doing 1 per turn.
This is one of the ones that he can't get rid of. This is going to happen for every turn for the rest of the game. I wonder if Joe's thinking in his mind, this might not matter because there might not be a lot of turns left. Ooh,
yeah.
This is the one card you really don't want to banish the Blood Debt is Art of War. Or this is the deck that takes advantage of Art of War better than anything else. And this is a 1 for 5 here for only an Invert Existence. But you see, there's still the Unhallowed Rites sitting over there as well. So maybe a few things.
Yeah, a slight miss from Joe, but given how that last turn was played, given the fact that he used the carrion husk at that point, I have a feeling that the hand is already pretty good. I see a Belittle lined up. Looks like be able to go get a Minnowism, use that to maybe fuel Command and Conquer. So there's already options here from Joe, and also protected that Arsenal very aggressively, so maybe a good option in Arsenal as well.
Yeah, it could be something like an Art of War in that Arsenal. I think I see a Command and Conquer of his own in his hand, so this does look like Belittle's going to reveal Belittle.
Yep, that's going to go get a Minnowism.
It only gets 1 Minnowism, though. It only gets 1. We don't get to double
so
up.
Far. Yeah. So far. It's going to get blue Minnowism this time. So you mentioned the flexibility of this Belittle package. Here we're seeing Joe use it for resources instead. Also just as important as that damage output.
Absolutely. Let's see, how is he going to use these extra resources that he's gained this turn? Now, this is one of the things I kind of want to talk about. We did talk about counting the bottom of the deck. It might not come around. We've been shuffling quite a bit, so we'll have to see that if that matters.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a possibility that this game could extend a little bit. Like, very, very reliant on Marius's draws. If it just isn't able to put together any kind of combo turns, it might just be block out until we can get to a point where something happens. Given how well this Chane player has set up the early game, though, how much damage has already leaked through, I'm of the opinion that this game will probably end before we do a full cycle of the deck.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good point. So the shuffling might not matter anyway, so it does look like we have a red Shadow Puppetry.
Yeah, Shadow Puppetry going to go ahead, give that Rosetta Thorn a little go again action. Still resources floating for Joe. A lot of options left here.
Love the way that Joe's played this game. Very methodical. You can tell that he's a very experienced player on Chane, making sure he sequences all the stuff just right, make sure he gets everything just right. Because we talked about this with Chane. Yeah, it's a powerful deck. There's so many moving parts.
Yep.
I remember the first time I tried to play this deck, I just had paralysis.
Yeah, I just did nothing.
Yeah.
I just sat there and died.
That's exactly what happened. I was like, I don't, there's so many decisions.
Yeah, huge learning curve, but Joe very up to the task thus far. Pushing out that damage. You see Marius having to think here. Has Celestial Cataclysm in hand. I mean, look, that's a fine play. 0 for a lot. Very nice. That soul loaded up, but it's not what we're trying to do here. Like, we just need to set up combo stuff. So I'm not even sure if Celestial Cataclysm will be a big part of Marius's plan, at least at this juncture. You're looking to use that for a little bit more impact, take some resources away from the opponent. So maybe there's just more blocks coming here.
Yeah, with the way that he's played this game, do you think he's just pretty much at this point all in on comboing?
Look, I'm going to defer to Marius. I just don't have the reps with Sir Bolton to efficiently analyze their role. It's a deck that, like I said, has not been a huge part of the metagame during my time with Flesh and Blood. But given the way the early turns have gone and the fact that there's just no real effort to push through damage, it's just all about that soul, I have to think we're playing to a combo point here.
I think it's the only out pretty much at this point. I think if you start trying to play a fair game with Chane from here,
you're just too far behind.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to with the Soul Shackles already at 6. And I mean, it's kind of unfortunate for Marius, right? You know, he committed to that very early in the game, and the deck just hasn't really bailed him out.
Yeah, I mean, those critical pieces have not shown up thus far, and I haven't really seen a path forward for Marius given the draws that have been presented. Like, there's been some nice plays, you know, Command and Conquer, things like that, but nothing really that feels Bolton-ish is what I would say. Like, nothing that really plays to the strengths of the hero.
Now, while there's nothing in Arsenal here, this is a 7-power Command and Conquer attacking here, and I did kind of want to take a moment to mention this. This card is insanely important in this matchup from Chane into Bolton, because there's a lot of times where if they find the combo card, they have to just arsenal it and hope for the correct spot to play it.
Correct. Yeah, an important tool for Joe here. Command and Conquer, a card that I've seen, again, float in and out of Chane lists recently. I think Tarek Patel was playing Rifting as opposed to Command and Conquer in the last list I saw from him. So there's been some debate as to whether this card still merits inclusion. In this spot, though, I guarantee Joe is happy to have it.
Most important question for Command and Conquer. You're playing the 3 of them in your deck.
Yeah.
Are they black or white bordered?
They are, for now, black bordered. I would like to remedy that.
Yeah.
I would like to move to white bordered. I would honestly like to move as much of my collection as possible to white bordered. Old school, baby.
I was gonna say, I think a lot of the older players really like the white border stuff. Kind of brings you back to those CCGs in the 90s.
Yeah. I think I'm too, like, I basically own every Flesh and Blood card there is at this point. So I'm probably too deep to, like, really revamp my collection. But anything else I have to add, it just has to go that way.
I think I see a pretty important card. I maybe in Marius is saying it happened really faster, but let's take a look at this banish. It looks like the last couple cards were really good. We got a Riftbind,
Bounding Demigod.
Bounty Demigod, yep.
I think you're right about Marius' hand, though. I think I might see the V for Vendetta. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Got me a little excited for half a second. That might be my favorite graphic novel of all time in a movie that's really high on my list. Let's see. Joe got a pretty powerful turn set up here. Let's see how deep he wants to go. He's got 4 cards in Blood Debt here. That invert existence. He's got a Riftbind. He's got a Bounding Demigod. He's got a Flock of the Feather in his hand as well as a tome. Try to get a little bit more a peek at his hand. It's kind of hard to see. So this is going to be a hard to sequence turn.
Of course, meant via the Vanguard Tannen.
I was rolling with it. I was rolling with it.
Let's rename it right now. Yeah. Someone make an altar, V for Vendetta.
And just put the Guy Fawkes mask on the guy. Yeah,
on Bolton on this card.
Make one for me. That's for me. Make one for me. I'll be a Bolton player for that.
That works.
Joe taking his time with the turn here.
Oh, that's the Lumina Ascension in Marius' hand.
Yes, it does look like we're going to start out with
and Tannen, there's also a Beacon of Victory. This is it for Marius. Like, this is what we're playing towards. We're about to see fireworks from Marius' side. Hopefully. Now, the alternative is he dies.
Yeah,
which is very scary right now and very within the realm of possibility.
Chane could 100% 23 this turn.
Oh, absolutely. So let's see how Marius wants to go ahead and navigate this turn. Looks like there's a Soul Shield at the ready, which is a little awkward given the rest of what's happening with this hand. It's going to be really interesting to see how Marius wants to navigate this.
He does have a little extra block from some of his equipment here lined up too, so maybe he can make his way out of this turn and get that big turn. Because look, we're down to 34. There's a possibility of a few more Blood Debt. This is doable. It's doable. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel for Marius here. But he's got to get through this attack.
I think right now I'm putting doable in quotation marks.
Yeah, I think they can hear it at home. I was saying the air quotes.
It's on the absolute outer edges of possibility, and I think that's why you see Marius having such a hard think about this Bounding Demigod, because it's always the same question in Flesh and Blood. What do I commit to offense? What do I commit to defense? And if you let this Bounding Demigod through, you have to say, okay, my combo turn is going to do enough. I'm going to get enough damage output, because your life total is going to get very precarious from that point. So this is a critical decision in this match.
And you see it's taken the time and really weighing on Marius.
This is it. This is the turn.
Yeah. This Bounding Demigod attacking for 7, still in the combat chain, and this is just the start. This is just the beginning. There's going to be a lot more behind this, so that's what you see is really weighing on Marius here. You can't just be like, oh, well, I'll just take the 7.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I could see there being one more turn from Joe just based on the hand. I see a Ghostly Visit. I see a Flock of the Featherwalkers and a Tome of Feyendel. So that's not the most explosive chain hand. There is some stuff floating over in the banished zone, but you would really like one more chance at setup here if you get it and then just completely go for it on your 8 Soul Shackle turn. Mm-hmm. However, Joe knows he's at risk. He knows what this Bolton deck is capable of, knows the damage output it could do. So, again, this beautiful dance. How much do you commit? How much do you hold back? Both these players trying to figure it out right now. And the stakes are high, the pressure is high, and you see Marius just agonizing over this decision. So critical what's going to be done about this 7-power Bounding Demigod.
I think they both know that this is like the penultimate turn.
Yep.
This is it, and you're seeing it really weigh on him.
And it's wild that we're doing that at 23 and 34 life, right? Like, how different is that from the typical game of Flesh and Blood? You know, we're often jockeying to get your opponent into what we call the Kadashi position, where they're super vulnerable to your every single move. This is just about throwing off huge salvos from basically nothing.
Yeah, he's going to get prompted to make a play here. He's had ample enough time to think about this. I think he's had enough, but I don't know what the correct decision is here.
I do not either, and I
so
would not
difficult.
even guess. I'm going to leave it to Marius to tell us what to do. Going to be Soul Shield, soaking up some of that damage, and I think that means we're not seeing the combo attempt on the next turn. You're just not going to have the resources for it. I think.
Yeah,
I think
it's a big deal that you point out the life totals at 22 to 34 here. It's so important because both decks know the other one can kill them from this spot, that they can present. You know, we can see Joe's hand and see that maybe not, but that's what took Marius so long and why he was so anguished. And he doesn't know that the hand is maybe not as good. You know, he's worried about it. If the first attack is 7, I might get attacked 3 more times this turn for 7 apiece. Really, or something along those lines.
Really interesting play from Joe here. Yellow Belittle. Now,
that's a real commitment.
Yeah, we talked about minnowism and how there's some divide on whether Chane players want to play it or not. And usually, even when they do, they play 3 red Belittle, usually like 2 red minnowisms, 3 blue minnowisms is the breakdown I see often. Almost never see a yellow Belittle. But Joe, very committed to this plan, just firing off yellow Belittle. Looks like it's time for Rosetta Thorn coming in for 2 and 2 on Marius, holding just those combo pieces in hand. Lumina Ascension, V of the Vanguard. No vendettas here. Just good, clean, light warrior play from Marius. Every decision now just drawing absolute agony for Marius, feeling sort of like there's a no-win position here. Looks like the damage was taken. Going to go ahead and just play a minnowism. Blue minnowism just being played for its face value.
Going to pitch that flock as well here. So he's got some
play
resources
through Spellbound
well.
Creepers critically. So that's going to go ahead and extend the combat chain here.
It does
give
look
Joe a chance at more attacks.
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be a big Rift Bind here. It looks like, what is that, at 5? 6. So 6 power Rift Bind here.
Yeah.
Not the Rift Binds we were used to back in the day when they used to be 10, 11, 12.
Sure.
But Seeds of Agony.
Marius,
I miss you so much.
Ready with a Sink Below in Arsenal, but that means this turn is going to be about setup. It's going to be putting one of those combo pieces into Arsenal, and then you got to survive the 7 Soul Shackle turn from Joe. 2 cards already floating there in the Banish Zone, ready to go. One of them inevitable, essentially, invert existence. So there's problems here for Marius, for sure.
Yeah, so 3 Blood Debt, going to put Joe down to 31. Marius at 14 is going to go ahead and Arsenal up. All the Command and Conquers are gone, I'm pretty sure. I think the last one got banished. Another Art of War got banished. There's the Eclipse showing
Shadow
that
Averser.
Really ready for that long game. So
okay, so this was not a great banish from Joe. We only saw a Shadow Averser. However, Joe also has a Shadow Averser in hand. And if there's another Blood Debt card to go along with that, this could get really wide really fast and present some real problems for Marius.
Yeah, and Joe's got to know, right? If you're sitting in Joe's seat, that Arsenal can kill you.
Absolutely.
So I expect the full extent of trying to end the game here to happen because he's got to trade. He's got to trade for any cards in his hand that he can, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, push as much damage as possible. And Joe's setup is not optimal. It's good though, and there's another card in hand for that Shadow Averser. So you could go Shadow Averser, banish your Shadow Averser, Shadow Averser, banish another card from your hand. I believe it's on Unhallowed Rites. And now we've gotten really wide, and we can start talking Eclipse territory.
Yeah, I also see a Captain's Call and an Exude Confidence, both cards that can really mess with this turn, either pumping or pumping extra damage, giving go again. Exude Confidence really messes up the combat chain and how you defend as well. Maybe that's what Joe's thinking about this turn. How do I want to lead this turn? How do I want to start stuff? When do I want to get Exude Confidence on the combat chain? Lots of stuff. This is where the good Chane players really make their money, really get their bread, you know, because like this is the spots where yeah, there's a 4-card hand, there's an Arsenal, but you've also got about 4 or 5 other cards you could play from Banish here as well, and it looks like we're going to start the turn off with a Captain's Call.
Yeah, Captain's Call going to be the first play here. Just going to get go again for whatever the first salvo is here. Now, it was interesting, the Captain's Call in hand was, I believe, the only blue card. So now the pinch is resources. Chane can deal with that, though. Chane has a lot of cheap attacks. Exude Confidence, going to go ahead and lead. Of course, it's going to get Quasi go again on the back of that Exude, or excuse me, on that Captain's Call.
Love the tight sequencing here, though. He also made the Soul Shackle to
Correct.
give the next one go again, but he puts this before the Exude Confidence so it doesn't
break the chain.
Yeah, you don't want to break the combat chain here to make sure the Exude Confidence is on this combat chain as long as possible. Joe really taking his time here, finding the correct sequence and lines. You can see why it's so why it's so popular, why it's so important. You see it isn't defended by a card with equal or greater power. The defending hero can't play or activate instants for the rest of the combat chain.
Yeah, and that's going to limit Marius' options quite a bit here. Now, this Unhallowed Rites is going to benefit from that Soul Shackle. It's going to get go again, and there's a lot left in the tank here. So ultimately pitch that Shadow Averser. That's what's going to generate the resources on this turn. That makes sense. I like where Joe's head is at. I think he's going to get the most output in this fashion.
Unhallowed Rites put to the bottom of the deck. Probably not going to come up in this game, but this is one of the ones, like, if you're pitch stacking, if you're going to go long, that's one of the important cards that goes to the bottom. It used to always be Seeds of Agony, but now it's like I've got a little extra power at the bottom of my deck when we get there. The Shadow Verser coming out of exile.
Yep.
Sorry, out of banish. I apologize.
Out of the banish zone. Going to go ahead and force 2 here. Believe it banished that additional Unhallowed Rites, giving itself go again. Also setting up future Unhallowed Rites ready to go.
Marius down to 6 here. You can see he doesn't want to give up life total here, but he doesn't
want to give up cards either.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. But his life total is actually lower than it appears to be because of those Invert Existence just chilling, ready to go, and with the potential to blow up Marius out of nowhere. Of course, Invert Existence an instant. So Joe will have the opportunity to reload and then fire off Invert Existence.
Yeah, you would do it during Marius' turn.
Yep. Now there is the Arcane Barrier from the Skull Cap it'll have to contend with, but that's still a card from hand.
Yeah, and then it needs to be a blue as well.
Absolutely.
That's a lot to ask for. It's like not only you have a card, you need a blue that you're not using for your turn. So it looks like Rosetta Thorn's going to come in for 1-1.
Yeah, a lethal 1-1.
I'm sorry, 2-2.
2-2.
Yeah,
correct. I just followed.
I see all the ones everywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of ones out there. I get it.
Yeah. So it looks like the Blood Debt is going to go through Joe, and Marius is going to survive at 1 here. Does he have what it takes?
Kept a lot of resources in hand, but here's the problem. Invert Existence, could that really ruin plans here? Anytime
that there's no cards in his hand, he's going to die on the spot.
Right.
Yeah. So he's got to worry about that for the rest of the game as well. In fact, is that what's going to happen this turn? Are we going to see him start to go off and then die in response?
I think it's almost certain, but let's see if he can find a window to play around it. I mean, it's face up, right? The Invert Existence is sitting there. Everyone knows what's going on. Here's that Beacon of Victory. That's going to go ahead, banish from the soul. I believe we know what we're doing here. Yep, it's time for Lumina Ascension.
You see the nod from Joe. He's like, yep, we've all been here before.
Yeah,
all right.
Now we're going to try and push some damage, but you need resources to do damage.
You see Beacon of Victory, very important in this deck, and finding those combo pieces. It's kind of like redundant copies of the combo pieces to make sure that your deck is
you need that. You want multiple Lumina Ascension on your combo turn, and that is what Marius has now set up. There are 2 Lumina Ascensions, but you got to have enough resources to defend yourself, and if you ever overcommit, that's going to be it. And Joe knows that. So Joe says, you have to present something to me that makes me act. Until then, I will wait. I will sit here until I know the coast is clear. So here's these 2 Lumina Ascensions coming down.
Yeah, Snapdragon was activated. Let this have go again. Keep going. Double Lumina Ascension.
Courage of Bladehold also activated, it looks like, at this point.
Yep, so those sabers are pumped up.
Yep.
Quite a bit.
And now they come. And now Joe has to ask, well, what's that last card in hand? Is it go time? There you see. Oh, there's a second Invert Existence. Okay, so we're going to fire off this first Invert. Finds the cards to go ahead and send to the banish zone. That's going to get the response. That's going to get the first one taken care of. And the second Invert Existence cleans it up. And that means Joe Cologne going to move on to 3-0.